Hey, friendo, Steve here. Welcome back to WrestleJuice. It's time for another Ask WrestleJuice where you guys ask me questions and I answer them. There was a lot of Christmas questions on here because I was going to try to get this up for yesterday, but then I didn't because it's Christmas and I always think that I could do more than I actually can, and then things happen and, et cetera, et cetera. Let's go ahead and dive into this. First up, Scott LeBeau says, do you think Drew McIntyre should be the one to dethrone Cody? I think that he is one of a number of really, really strong contenders right now to do that. I think he's one of them. I would say there's three names that I could think of that I think would be great to dethrone Cody. I don't think it's going to be Kevin Owens. And in fact, I really like what they've done with Kevin Owens, him carrying around the real world championship. And then he'll just end up losing to Cody. But he'll carry that for a month or something like that. I hope he defends it. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Anyways, who should dethrone Cody? I think Drew McIntyre is a great option. I think that he put in the kind of work this year, 2024, over the past year, to justify him getting a major push to become a major player. And I think there's a rumor out there that suggests that might actually be the case. And so I could definitely see him being the guy at SummerSlam or something like that. I think another name is John Cena. I think if they really want to make a big deal marketing-wise about John Cena, they could have him do it at WrestleMania, and then Cody gets it back from him at SummerSlam. I think that's a possibility as well. I think I mentioned that in the last video that I did, or one of the last videos I did here. I think also CM Punk is strong enough. I think CM Punk is a name that he's probably more popular at this point than Cody. He's probably the most popular guy in the company. So I think he's a guy that could do it as well. And I think the match would be good. I think the build would be excellent. I think that'd be a cool idea. And then I also think a name like Seth Rollins. When Cody came into the company, Seth Rollins lost 3 in a row to him, including a match he shouldn't have lost. Or at least in theory, in the world of, WWE, he probably shouldn't have lost because Cody was missing a pec, right? The Hell in a Cell match. It was awesome. And I think Cody winning there was the right call because what better way to go out before his big return? It was a very gutsy performance. That being said, it's come on, Seth, what are you doing? Seth Rollins has always been kind of the bridesmaid in WWE. And I feel like he has put in enough time, has enough equity, and he's proven to be able to be the kind of guy who can recreate himself, that I feel like this feud with CM Punk that he's in now could benefit from Seth Rollins going full bad guy, super vicious bad guy. And I think that there would be some amount of symmetry, I guess, if he were to be the guy that beat Cody Rhodes. So I think there's all sorts of names out there. And then, of course, you got the Roman Reigns, you got the final boss, The Rock. There's all sorts of names out there that I feel could be the guy to beat Cody Rhodes legitimately. And they're sort of setting all those pieces up right now. Unless it's Cena, I don't think it's going to happen at WrestleMania. If it's Cena, it's going to happen at WrestleMania. He'll have a summertime run with it and they'll drop it at SummerSlam. But I think that they're setting up a lot of really intriguing pieces for Cody. And I think that any number of them could be legitimate enough to beat him. All right, we've got a Going in Raw type question here from the phenomenal Poon Slayer. Says, if Going in Raw is main roster and Friendo Club is developmental, does that make WrestleJuice the Indies? I actually think this is exactly what it is. Going in Raw is main roster WWE. Friendo Club is NXT. WrestleJuice is AEW. I'm trying to kind of compete because the numbers between here and Friendo Club are kind of similar, and honestly the revenue is kind of similar, except I get everything here and I get only half of Friendo Club. And so yeah, I feel like we're kind of AEW and Friendo Club is NXT because there's a direct feeder to Going in Raw because it's me and Larson. If I bring something from here, if somebody gets signed from here to Going in Raw, then I have to kind of adapt it to the Going in Raw, to the WWE house style. So yeah, I feel like that's probably the closer analogy. Shane Canavan says, who's a wrestler or act that you weren't into this year that you've come now to appreciate before the year's out? That would be Tony D'Angelo. Coming into the year, I was not. I was like, what is this guy? Why is he a mafia guy? I don't know, making a lot of sense. And they've sort of softened his character. They made him a baby face. And now the mafioso stuff is kind of like on the side. It just sort of, I don't know, adds some color to his character, if you will, because he's just like wrestler guy, but he's also the Don of NXT. But they didn't really dive too much into like what that means. And I think that's benefited him. Plus, he's grown as a wrestler. And I see the appeal in the character now. All right, we had several questions that were kind of like this. Jason Searwhite says, Merry Christmas, Steve. What are some Christmas traditions in your home and how are you celebrating this Christmas? Very typical sort of thing that we do. I think a lot of families do this. So like one tradition that me and Alabama have, my child, is because usually Lacey, she used to work for the post office, so she would work on Christmas Eve. And then this year, like she got a state job, so she's working with the state, and she worked on Christmas Eve again. And so Bama and I, we go for like a yearly traditional walk on Christmas Eve. And like this goes back to when she was like 3 years old. It was raining, but it wasn't raining too hard one year on Christmas Eve, and Lacey was gone. So I was like, "Hey, kiddo, let's go to the school." And I took Gypsy with us, and Gypsy ran, all over the school and stuff. And there's like a huge soccer field there. And so like we went out in the rain, and then we came home, and we got into like pajamas and we took a nap. And so like without the nap aspect of it, Bam and I have made like a tradition every year of going out for a walk on Christmas Eve. And yeah, that's what we do. And then on Christmas Eve night, we go to my mom's house, open up some presents over there. And then, we come back here, for like Christmas Day. We're here and we do our thing in the morning and everybody comes to our house, and then they leave by like noon. And then we just hang out the rest of the day. So that's our tradition. Nothing really special. Sir Hubbo says, what should be the end of the Death Rider storyline? In my opinion, I think it's going to end up being Darby at Revolution. I think that's going to be the thing. And then probably Death Riders will just sort of go away for a while. That's my guess. It should be Hangman Adam Page. He should be the guy that beats Moxley for the title straight up one-on-one. Or it's either Hangman or Swerve or Ospreay. One of those three guys. Those three guys should be sort of the foundation of AEW. I feel like it's going to be Darby at Revolution, though. Go Birds XTL says, when are we going to get an Ultimo pick of Steve with all of the titles? When the CM Punk bootleg comes in. I'll do it then. Because then I'll have the Real World's Championship. And I got these three right here. And then I'll have the fourth one. No, I'll have, what is that, fifth one? Yeah, I'll do it then. Heel Heat says, what's one gift you would give to each company, AEW and WWE? All right, so the gift I would give to AEW would be a showrunner. Somebody who could properly pace and book their show, their weekly wrestling television, because I feel like that is the storylines and the way they pace things out are kind of the thing that are keeping people from tuning in. I feel like they don't have compelling, oh my God, what's going to happen next week storylines right now. And that's what they need to build their audience. So I would give them a showrunner, a proper showrunner who does not splitting their time between doing analytics for whatever, the Jaguars, and then also running Fulham FC. I'll give him a showrunner. So Tony Khan could take that time. He could just give him the big ideas, and the showrunner could actually implement them in a way that's going to bring people in to put butts in seats and put viewers in front of televisions. So there's that. WWE, I would give them Shawn Michaels running SmackDown. That's what I would do. Triple H can handle Raw. Shawn Michaels runs SmackDown. CM Punk faxes in his booking sheet for NXT. AJ Otani says, what move-based storyline is better? The Kevin Owens pile driver so far or Ospreay's Tiger Driver story? I'm partial to the Tiger Driver story because the way largely because the Tiger Driver legitimately, especially the way Kenny Omega takes it, it legitimately is a fucked up move. Like there is the smallest margin of error. A pile driver for anybody who's into wrestling. Look, I appreciate that they brought back the pile driver within the universe of WWE is something that's devastating. But like, it's not really. Like, it doesn't look like it. The Tiger Driver looks like it can fuck you up. Pile driver doesn't. Shauna Starr says, I'm new to your page and I'm wondering what made you start watching wrestling and how did you manage to make it into a career? I really enjoyed your videos and I hope you can keep it up for a very long time. Well, welcome in, Shauna. Appreciate you being here. So what got me into watching wrestling? So here's the thing, like I've been doing this for such a long time that I understand that when there's new people who come in, they might have to sift through the channel a ton of videos or go over the podcast to going in raw to figure out, hey, what is this guy's origins? What are their origin stories? What are, so I've talked about this before, but I'm happy to talk about it again because this is like, my channel and I like to get personal sometimes here. So here's my origin story when it comes to wrestling. Larson, my best friend and partner over at Going in Raw, and I met back in high school, but we became really good friends in junior college. It was like the first couple of weeks of junior college. I had enrolled. He was a year ahead of me in high school. I think he took like the first semester off, first year off or something like that. He was taking very light course load. And so we became really good friends in junior college. And that friends group, because like most of my friends in high school, they ended up leaving for colleges. I stayed back here in town to go to community college first before I went to a 4-year. And so all my friends left, but I had made friends with a couple other people in classes where there was a mix of juniors and seniors. So like my friend Big Jeff, Larson, Hilton, all them, they were all a year ahead of me, but I'm smart. And so I was in their classes when they were seniors. So Larson and I met there, and they all were into two things that I was, or one thing that I was into, filmmaking. And they were also into pro wrestling. I had never been into pro wrestling. I knew about pro wrestling. I knew what it was. I never had any like problems with it. I just never got into it. It never interested me. Never was really on my radar all that much. And so back then in college, I used to hang out with them. They used to watch wrestling. And that was back when the NWO was like blowing up. And I was like, oh, this is actually a lot of fun. This is pretty cool. I enjoy this. And so that's how I got into it. And then fast forward to 2009, I'm driving through Los Angeles to get down to San Diego for the San Diego Comic-Con. And Larson calls me up, and he had been working for a company called Machinima. And it was like a video game YouTube channel. But they were like one of the first big ones. And he was like, hey, I need a voiceover guy. Would you like to do voiceover? I was like, I've never done that before, but sure, because everybody says I got the voice for that. So I rolled through the office, met a couple people, and then a couple weeks later, he was like, hey, do you want to do more? And I was like, yes. And then like a couple months after that, they're like, hey, they want to give us a show. You want to write a show, and we can perform it for 10 for the win. It was a bunch of video game top 10 list shows. And so I was like, yes, let's do that. So that became my thing. At the same time, I was doing some editing for the Sacramento Kings, so I was sort of holding down two jobs. And then we ended up building up a pretty decent audience for that. And then in 2015, we got laid off. But a year prior to that, we started doing a podcast called Going in Raw. And it was kind of just a side thing. It was a fun thing to do because we enjoyed wrestling. And then when we got laid off, we were like, well, hey, we enjoy this. We're not too into the video game thing. So let's pivot to wrestling. And so we were one of the first YouTube channels to really dive into the wrestling world. And so we started doing that in 2015. And then around 2016, I think it was around 2016, the channel really started taking off with the wrestling content. And that's where we are. And then like around the same time I started this channel, because we got laid off, and I was like, well, I want to explore my options. And then probably a couple of years ago, 3-4 years ago, I think 3 years ago, I turned this from like my general channel for like gaming and movies and stuff like that. I was like, you know what? Screw it. People like to hear me talk about wrestling, so I'll just do a solo wrestling channel on top of all the other stuff that I do. So that's WrestleJuice. Sir Hubbo says, what's your favorite Christmas wrestling moment? It's when Dominic Mysterio invaded his dad's house. What was it, a year ago, 2 years ago, when he was a real piece of shit? That was hilarious. Log D says, what's your least favorite toys you received as a kid? My favorite Christmas present ever was Batman 89 on VHS. But my toys, I always loved Transformers, and I loved Mask. You guys remember Mask? I always loved that shit. All right, getting back to wrestling. Jared says, how do you think Okada, Ospreay, and Mercedes would be doing if they signed with WWE? I think Ospreay would be doing really well right now. I don't know about like, it wouldn't shock me if Ospreay was Intercontinental Champion or US Champion. That wouldn't shock me. Okada, I think he'd be doing, I'm trying to think of anybody that would be in a similar area to him. I think he'd be in the upper mid card. I think maybe, he'd be coming off a feud with Seth Rollins or something like that. And then Mercedes, I think she'd be doing fine. I think Mercedes would, she'd probably be feuding over or winning she's too big for the mid card titles. So, I don't know. I could see her probably feuding with Nia Jax right now. I think that'd be a possibility. Diabetic Man says, what's been your favorite pay-per-view of the year? Be WrestleMania. Probably night 2. Was that the better night this year? I don't know. I think just WrestleMania in general. It's just a fun time. Like, everybody gets interested in wrestling again. There was a lot of intrigue with the Rock stuff. Yeah, I thought it was a really fun night 1 and 2. I mean, there were some turds that they dropped this year, like the Jimmy and Jay match kind of sucked. But otherwise, I thought WrestleMania was a lot of fun. That was probably my show of the year, just because it's so big, and I thought it was a lot of fun this year. Zondo says, what was your biggest surprise of 2024? Mine was how Swerve versus Hangman came out of nowhere. That was amazing. My biggest surprise was the fact that they used syringes in AEW. That was wild. That, and then the Hangman fire burning down Swerve's house. That was awesome. That was really, really good. That might be my feud of the year. We'll end on this one because it's kind of Christmas related, because it's kind of like the story of, what was it? That one where the dude looks at life if he didn't exist and everybody's happier. Tim says, what is it? Wonderful Life? Something like that. What is Scrooged? What do you think you and Larson would be doing now if you never started going in Raw? I firmly believe that we would have become movie YouTubers. I think we've been movie critics. We've been like Siskel and Ebert. I think we would have done that because I think we were starting early enough. Like, I think there was plenty of movie podcasts and whatnot out there. But I feel like we probably would have done a decent job translating our old audience to a movie podcast. And it'd be interesting to see how that would go, because like movies have really kind of fallen off compared to where they were like 10, 15 years ago. So it'd be interesting to navigate that space, especially Larson being kind of like not huge on like big box office movies, like the Marvel shit and all the superhero stuff. So like trying to navigate stuff that we like, but stuff that would also pop a number. That would have been interesting and probably really challenging to navigate. It'd be as if like, if we're like, oh, we don't want to talk about WWE. It's like, how do you make a career where you're not getting paid chump change and not talk about WWE? So I think it would have been even more difficult to do that in the movie realm. But it would have been interesting. It would have been, and I think we would have been fine. But yeah, I think we would have gotten to movies. I'm actually kind of surprised that we didn't, to be honest with you. I'm kind of surprised that we didn't. We jumped into wrestling because it's so much fun. But I'm also kind of surprised that we didn't just immediately go like, okay, look, let's just be a movie show. Let's be a movie YouTube channel. Anyways, that's going to do it for this edition of Ask WrestleJuice. Thanks everybody for your questions. I appreciate it. Hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up. And yeah, I'll probably be back tomorrow with like something else.